Hello YouTube, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing another Savage Sword of Conan review, right? And I have the first one here because I want to do a few things. First of all, I want to thank everyone that watched my video, that interacted with me, that left comments. Thank you guys so much. It's great. It was a wonderful experience to have a video that had so much communication and so many viewers and so many people liking it and so many people talking to me about things, right? That's basically why I wanted to do this channel. And the fact that I managed to do that through this Savage Sword of Conan issue that I reviewed is amazing. Thank you guys very much for interacting with me. Hopefully you guys continue to do so and try to check out some of my other videos. And if you don't, it's all cool. If you guys only want to stay for Conan, that's all good. I don't really mind. Thank you guys very much once again. And that's basically the beginning message, right? Second thing is I want to mention that I didn't actually tell you guys what my score was for last time, right? I said I wanted to score this out of 10, and I didn't. I forgot to do it. So the score that I gave this book last time was an 8 out of 10. I think it was good, but it had some issues. And I think that most of those issues more or less resolved themselves for this second issue here. However, the reality of that situation is that it's not actually because they heard our issues and they fixed it. It's more like they probably had an idea of what this book would look like now, and so they had more things that they could tell the authors and artists that were working on the second issue, and so they got to fix it even before we looked at it, right? And so I think that we will continue to see that going forward, and hopefully, you know, by issue 7 or 8, if we get that far, we'll have books that are basically perfect, right? Because I think that the time from which we complain to when those complaints can be implemented is more or less like 3 or 4 issues down the line, right? So if we're on issue 2, I think that by issue 6 or 7, we'll probably get to see some of those changes implemented properly based on our feedback and not necessarily based on the internal feedback that they had, right? So yeah, also I wanted to mention one last thing before we move on here. In this story, or in this first issue, there was a Solomon Kane essay, right? And I forgot to mention by who wrote it, right? So this is the essay right here. Men Shall Die for This by Jeffrey Shanks, also known as An Age Undreamed Of on YouTube. You can find them. They have a channel. They've had discussions with some other people, if I remember correctly, and they're like a pop culture historian or archaeologist, they call themselves, and they do great work, right? So I wanted to mention that because I forgot to do so last time, and he left a comment on my video, and I told him, hey, I'll make sure to correct this for the next video, and so I want to live up to my promises, and there we go. So that's basically it for this. This was the cover that we were shown for next issue, but I actually ended up getting cover A. Although I actually do like cover B better, but I don't really go out of my way to look for, special covers. I just want to get the cover that is standard at all times, just to keep myself from becoming a bit of a what's it called, alt cover chaser, right? I don't really want to get into that, and so I tried to basically just ignore all of that stuff and just be like, okay, just get me cover A always, right? And they did. And well, I'm a bit sad because I actually don't really like this cover. I think that the painting quality is good. Everything about how this looks is nice, but I don't like this creature here. It's supposed to be similar to the creature within the book, and I just don't think that that's actually true. I think that this creature here is more like the Flood from Halo than it is like what the creature that we see in the story is, right? And so that's a bit disappointing, but I'm not too pressed about it. It's not that big of a deal, but I'm just not really that big of a fan of this story, of this cover here. However, I do like the colors. I like how this is more of a teal brown type thing, and this was an orange brown type thing, right? So there's kind of this interesting what's it called, like not necessarily matching, but good color variation between the two books. Hopefully the next one is also interesting like that. Maybe something purple would be cool. Although the red on this logo, I feel like it should have been like something like this color, right? Like it should have been more of a blue or a green. I don't think that the red necessarily was the right color for this, right? Because in the first issue, the orange makes sense because the background is orange, right? And in this case, there's no real red on this except for around the mouth of this creature, right? So I think this should have been more of a teal blue color, but maybe they didn't want this scythe thing to blend into that what's it called, to that font color, right? So I guess that's why they went with red, but I really would have liked it to be more like this color up here. But it's not that big of a deal. So that's it for the corrections. That's it for my thoughts on the cover. Now let's flip through the inside here. So we have a little ad here, which is good. I like that. I also like that it's still in black and white. Also, I guess I'm not done with the cover because I don't know if you guys can notice that there's a tiny little line of white here, which means that this was not cut correctly. And there's also a little bit of an issue there where it's missing a piece of the bottom. So that's not necessarily a big problem. I'm not really like upset about it, but it does show that there's a little bit of a quality control issue here, which actually is kind of prevalent in the story in certain parts, right? So that's it for the cover now for sure. Now let's actually look at the inside here. Like I said, I like the ad being in black and white. This is the Nemedian Chronicles page plus the map of Hyperborea. And finally, we get to see this map clearly. I really like that. I think this is much better than the map that they gave us in the first issue, so I'm very happy with the change here. I think it's great. Thank you very much for doing that, guys. I appreciate that. Then we move on here. We get a little bit more of a cutting issue here. We see this other band of white here, which is not great. We get to see this great image here, which is not of Conan. It's actually of a character that shows up in the story. Doesn't really matter. I think this looks great, and it still almost has this Conan vibe to it. So even though it's not exactly Conan, it's good enough. We have the content page here again. We have a nice preview of what's happening here, and in this case, this is not the big reveal of the story, or it kind of is, but we kind of see it earlier. This is just kind of like the big action piece of the story, and I think that in this case, I like that they showed it here because this is not like that special compared to like a fucking dinosaur, right? Like this is a little bit more tame, but it still looks phenomenal. I actually really like that they show this image here because this image is in one page, right? Where when you see it, it's a 2-page spread, so there's kind of division between the two. And I like being able to see the whole thing, plus later seeing it much larger with some issues with the gutter, right? So yeah, I think that that's good. I like that. And then we can see that we have 3 pinups and 2 stories, and then chainmail here in the middle, which is also nice. So the story opens up with pinup 1, or the issue opens up with pinup 1, and I love this pinup. I'm not sure that this is Conan. This feels more like the old man that hung out with Cole before he got exiled from his clan. This has like this very like dragon sorcerer vibe to it. I wouldn't necessarily think that this is what Conan looks like, but I really like it. I think this is a great piece, and I love that it actually works well in black and white. I can see all of the details, right? Even though it's not necessarily super clear, I can see the nails of the character. I can see, all of their fingers. I can see into their neck here. So I think that they did a great job with this. The artist did. The printer is still good. The printing is good. They made sure that this worked properly, but the artist did a good job of having this be on a light grayscale so that it would still be noticeable when it was printed, right? And the artist for this one was Rafael Cayanan, or Rafael Cayanan. I don't know how to say his name. I just went with a Spanish accent because I think that probably is more accurate. This is probably done by someone from Europe, right? So, yeah. And then we start the story here, and that's actually quite claustrophobic and quite messed up, and I really like this. I think that the artwork here is phenomenal. I mean, it's not necessarily my favorite style, but it works so well to really encapsulate what this story is trying to tell you, right? This is so claustrophobic. You only get tiny focuses because Conan is inside the dirt right now. He is not existing outside of this like tomb, right? So he is interred in the ground. I really love this, although the perspective here is a bit wonky. I'm not really sure that this is exactly what a human skull looks like from that perspective, but it's not really a problem. It shows you a great image. I really like what they did there. So I like that. I think that they did a good job. Again, this stuff is good, and this part here is phenomenal. I love this, right? Like, this looks like rocks, but then you look at the attention to detail here, you kind of follow this page, and you notice that this is fingers that are going like this, right? So that's so cool. I love that. I think that they did a great job with that. And then finally, we get the title page here, Leaving the Garden by Jim Zub and Richard Pace. Now, on one hand, I understand that Jim Zub is, the apple of the eye of the Conan office right now here at Titan. But on the other hand, I think that maybe this should be to show off other people, right? Not necessarily Jim Zub, right? Jim Zub doesn't need to write this and also write the main story and also do a novel and also do this other stuff. Like, maybe we can just leave Jim Sub to be the one that does the main story, right? I don't necessarily think that he needs to do everything, because ultimately he's doing a great job right now, and I don't really necessarily want him to get burnt out by having all of these different stories right now. I mean, maybe he wants to do it anyways, right? So it's fine if that's the case, but I really think that this magazine should really be more about showcasing other people, not necessarily focusing on the guy that's, you know, their flagship writer, right? So I don't know. That's a personal opinion of mine. I don't know if what you guys can, you know, if you guys have a different opinion of that, let me know down below. But yeah, they did a great job here. And of course, Richard Starkins is doing the lettering alongside Comic Craft's Tyler Smith. And I do want to say something about the lettering. It's kind of odd here. If you notice here, and this one, the thickness is one size plus a little bit of bolding for that Conan the Cimmerian part right there, right? But then if you notice on this other page, it looks like the font size or the thickness of the lines of the font is different from here. And I don't really know why that is. Maybe it's a different setting for the two letterers that worked on it. Or maybe it's a change in the font size or on the thickness of the font. I don't necessarily know that you can change thicknesses of fonts. I don't know how they make these comics. You know, it might be on latex, or it might just be on, you know, on Word, or it might be on some sort of drawing software, right? I'm not really sure how they get around to doing the lettering part, but I did notice that, and maybe I'm just imagining it, but I'm pretty sure that the thickness, the line thickness of the letters here is different from the line thickness here. And this kind of happens throughout the book, so it's a little bit annoying. It's a bit odd because I keep noticing it, and it kind of drags me out of the story, right? So, yeah, we get to see Conan dragging himself across here. We get to see a flashback, and there's also some details here that I really love. So, this might be a printing error, but I really don't think it is. Or it might be, but these printing errors here, or these like issues here, right, where you see the line that was bolded here, which looks really nice. It also looks hand-drawn. It doesn't look like it was made in a digital setting, right? It looks like it was drawn on hand with ink and paper, although it might not be. I'm not really sure. But these little details here on the side, right, and these little kind of like mess-ups all over the place feel very satisfying to look at. It might be like when you close this, I don't think so. I think that they're naturally there because of the artist, you know, having these little mistakes. But these little mistakes are really charming. I think that they're really nice, right? Because it really lends this feeling of like someone worked on this properly, right? Which you don't necessarily get if you do like digital only art, right? I mean, sometimes you do. Like if Daniel Warren Johnson draws something, you know, okay, this guy did a really good job, right? But that's because he draws it on paper and then he scans it and then he puts it on his iPad and stuff, right? And so I really like that these little details there happen. And I thought that maybe it was because of the ink here, but no, it looks like these don't match. So there's no way that this is like ink transfer from there, right? So I like that. I think that those are really charming. The art style here is not necessarily my favorite, but it has some great moments here, right? When Conan smiles and does this like half-turn grin thing is very fun. He does it in different ways here, which is very satisfying. However, there are some times when things kind of change and they don't look as good. But before I get to that, let's talk about this great spread here. I mentioned that this is like not that big of a reveal. I guess it is a big reveal. So I kind of retract what I said earlier, but this is not as like crazy as like Conan fighting a dragon, right? Or like a dinosaur. So I think that's why I don't really have a problem with them having that thumbnail at the beginning. But look at this image. This looks awesome. I love how crazy scared the horses look and how crazy these, you know, fungus people look. It's really, really nice. I like that. I think it's great. Here, I had some issue reading this and I can't remember what it is. Let me see if I can figure it out. I think it's this. So Conan looks like he's swinging that way, but his axe looks like it's coming down this way, even though the motion of the axe is that way, right? So I think that there's a bit of confusion here, and I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's the gutter that breaks this apart, and so it makes this looks one way and that looks the other. Like, it looks like Conan is swinging that way, but the way that the axe is angled, it feels like it's going that way, even if everything aims up. So I don't know. I'm kind of confused about it. Maybe it's the way that he has his hands positioned. I don't know. Something about this, even though it looks awesome, didn't like exactly work for me. Like there was some confusion in my mind about what was happening here, right? Not necessarily the character, just like how is this moving, right? So it's not really a complaint. It's not an issue with the artist. It's an issue with me. And it's just one that I wanted to mention. And then, of course, we have some printing issues here starting up. Although that is still readable, if you look at it in person, it's a bit too dark. It's almost like at the edge of being unreadable. So that's kind of bad. Then we have some more great images here going on. No issues with how dark everything is. I can still tell what everything is, right? And how things are moving, even though there's a bunch of shadow and light and, you know, scritchiness and stuff. I really think that Richard Pace did a great job with this. I think that this is phenomenal. There are some moments where the art style does kind of look bad. Like here, this kid just looks like a dwarf or something. His body is really huge. His legs are really small. His head is kind of oddly proportioned. And I'm not necessarily saying this is a problem or this is bad. It's just like there is this really sharp contrast between things that look really great and then these more bad, or less good kind of aspects, right? But, you know, we get to see that this kid has some issues and that there's this city. And then we get this foreshadowing here for this creature. And then we keep going. And in general, I mean, it's good. But here we have some printing issues again. This looks a bit too muddy. The printing on the writing here is quite bad throughout this whole page and then into this one too. It's not as noticeable here. It's not as easy to see, especially there though. It's quite bad for me. I'm looking at it here in person and it doesn't look great, right? But everything else looks good. Like, look at this. It's completely dark and yet you understand exactly what's going on here. There's a bunch of wolves and they're about to fight Conan, right? Like, that looks great. And so this is much better done than the first issue, right? But I think it's because Richard Pace knew that this was going to be in black and white and on bad paper before he finished drawing this, right? So he could go back and change some things. Where I don't know necessarily that Arcudi and Fafner and all the other guys that worked on that knew that, right? So I don't know. And then we get this page here, and this page is awesome. So, you know, Conan is telling this kid stories, and I think this is the Frost Giant's daughter, Conan fighting a giant, right? And then this is the Scarlet Citadel, Conan charging back home to fight some people, right? And then, I don't know what this is. This section here, if you guys know, let me know. I think this is supposed to be the Devil in Iron, right? But it could be something else. I'm just not sure. This is Rogues in the House, Conan having to sneak up on this wizard ape man that's Rogues in the House. And then this last one here, I thought maybe it's Bellet, but I don't think so because of this pillar and this thing right here and this woman kind of looking behind him, at him with this like interest. I think that this is actually supposed to be Suthal of the Dusk, right? There's a scene where Conan meets this woman and she tries to kill the girl that goes with him into this, you know, a dead city or whatever. And she's quite interested in Conan throughout the whole time, right? So I think that this is what all of these are telling us, right? And this kind of positions Conan in a specific time period. I'm not really sure what time period it is. And I think it's cool that all of this is mentioned because, you know, Jim Sub does enjoy doing that quite a lot. And I think that that's really fun. He also looks like a Flintstones character right here, which is funny. And then, well, we just have like these really great moments here. As he goes through this fight, right? And this is probably my favorite page here. I don't know, something about this like bug carcass burning in the fire and understanding that it's fire, even though it's really representational, right? Like, this doesn't look like flames. It's so great. I really like this art style. I mean, like, well, I don't like it, but I think it does a great job and fits so well with the style that is quite good. And then it ends with Conan committing some genocide, but we're going to ignore it. And, you know, he goes off and is sad. And he looks badass as fuck right here. Very Fabio-esque. And then we have a pinup number 2. And I love this one. I think this pinup is great. This is more what I think Conan is compared to the pinup that this guy, what's his name? Gerardo Sifano did for the first one. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Right, this is the other Sifano pinup, and I mean you can see that it's the same guy, right? Like, it's the same concept, but something about this image looks way more like Conan than this one. This one feels more like a Kings of the Wild kind of character, whereas this feels much more Conan to me. I don't know if it's like the posing or like the weird armor or, you know, the weird striped pants or something. I don't know. Something about this is much more Conan to me than Gerardo Sifano's previous work, right? It might be the snake in the back. I don't know. But I really like it. It's really nice. And then we have chainmail here. And these were nice. I'm not really a fan of reading, you know, the letters pages. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I kind of skimmed this one. It was interesting. It was fun. It was mostly just, you know, thank you guys for restarting. Thank you for doing this. And I love the cover by Joe Jusko, which I agree with. However, there were some big issues here. There's a massive space there. And then another massive space there. And then there's another space somewhere else here on this page. I think it was down here somewhere. There's a space there that shouldn't be there between plunder and the comma. And let me see. I could have sworn that there was one somewhere here in the middle that really messes up the flow of it. Let me see if I can find it. There's another space right there. Let's see. There was a space somewhere here that I saw that I was kind of upset about earlier, but I can't find it, so I guess I won't mention it anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. These small issues happen, but I really wish they weren't there, right? So yeah. And then finally we have Master of the Hunt by Project Searcher. This is part 2 of 3, so this is the second half, the second third, and the next one will be in the next issue, right? And so this story is enjoyable. I really love it. I think it's continuing on from last time really strongly, really nicely. It's doing a great job at being an interesting story about this guy from, you know, early England, just trying to fight these monsters, right? And I really like how it looks, right? Because, like, it's very saturated. There's a lot of, you know, stuff going on, but it's all still super clear, which is great. I love that. I think it's great. It's wonderful. It works out really nicely. And then there's really great image here, which is kind of funny because this is really reminiscent of stuff that's happening in Red Sonja right now. But, you know, Red Sonja and Conan are not actually connected anymore. However, there's these interesting kind of like echoes across what Thorin Groenbeck is doing with the stuff Jim Sub is doing, right? So it's quite interesting and cool. It's not really all that important, but I noticed it, and so I like it, right? And well, I mentioned Jim Sub, but this is actually Patrick Searcher's work, right? But what I mean is, between Red Sonja and between Conan, there's a lot of these echoes of things that happen across each other that are similar, that happen nearly at the same time, and that also happens with other sword and sorcery stories, right? Like last year, I think I was reading Death Dealer and Barbaric, and they were both going to hell to save a child in the same story at the same time in 2 different storylines in 2 different comic books. And it was quite funny, right? But yeah, it doesn't really matter. I think it was just an interesting moment to kind of highlight, right? And I like it. Either way, good stuff. And then finally, we have a Solomon Kane portrait here. Although, to be honest with you guys, this is nice. It looks good. It's done by Nick Marinkovich. But to be honest with you, this could be Solomon Kane. This could be Harry Dresden. This could be, you know, any other supernatural, you know, wizard or anti-wizard detective guy that's going around anywhere, right? I mean, this doesn't necessarily scream Solomon Kane to me. I mean, I know it's him because, 1, it's in this magazine, and 2, because he has the little pilgrim belt buckle on his hat. But I don't think it's distinct enough to really say that it is, you know, Solomon Kane right off the bat. So maybe next time we'll get a different, much more representative pinup. But I mean, I still liked it. So yeah, and then we have this other ad here, and then this other ad here, and this one is Rialto, who I think he shows up in one of the first stories that Conan is in the Robert E. Howard Library editions, like the ones from Del Rey. But I can't remember who he is. I think he's a buddy of Conan, or he's like an enemy of Conan. I can't remember. But he has a little shop at Conan.com, so you guys should check it out. And yeah, that's my review here. This is the end. This is the back issue material. There's 2 things missing. One, I'm missing the cover gallery, which is sad, because although it wasn't very good in the first issue, I think it would have looked nice here because they did a much better job printing it, right? However, it's not super important, mostly because there was only like 2 different covers this time, so it makes sense. The other thing is I would have liked an essay. I think that you know, you can fit essays in one page. You could have found a way to fit one extra page here, right? This is 15 pages less than the first issue at the same price. It's not really that big of a deal. I think, you know, $7 for 64 pages is good. But it could have been 1 or 2 extra pages here to fit in an essay or some other stuff. But I guess because of what's coming in next issue, we're going to get a lot more writing done next time. So I think it'll be fine. It'll balance out, right? But yeah, I like this cover. I think it'll be fun. Hopefully this is the main cover next time. And yeah, those are my thoughts on Savage Sword of Conan #2. I think they did a great job improving on the concept from last time. I think they did a great job in printing, although there was a lot of problems with it. I didn't really show you all of them, but the problems in this case is there's an oversaturation of ink, and they're not allowing enough drying time before they put the book together, and so the ink kind of moves around everywhere, right? That's not really that big of a problem, but it does muddy the reading experience a bit, because you're kind of having to go through the struggle of kind of parsing out what was supposed to be there and what's just texturing from the paper, right? However, that's a significantly less problematic issue than what we had last time, so I'm very happy with this, right? I think that both stories here were good. The 3 pinups were nice, and although there's issues, this is better. So I will give this a 9 out of 10, right? So yeah, those are my thoughts on Savage Sword of Conan #2. Let me know what you thought down below. Thank you guys very much for watching the video and taking the time to do so. And see you guys next time.